Hello, it's another exciting episode of You.Gov. It's all about you and the government. On this show, we talk about government functions and responsibilities, as well as citizens' obligations. I am Itohan Olomu-Agbodo, and after this time out, we'll let you know more.
Love app is bigger and better. Watch all our shows with just a click.
Let him have the right to decide what happens with your body.
Watch inspiring, informative, and entertaining programs. You can comment, like, and share. Watch our live TV and web TV on your mobile devices. Watch the big stories in real time or when you have the time. Experience Love app right now. Download Love app on Android, iOS, and BlackBerry. Go to Google Play Store, Apple App Store, or Windows Phone Store. Welcome to the bigger picture. Love beyond television.
The talk never stops, whether politics, leadership, or economies. In Africa, the issues, the facts, and all the sides. Your views matter. Let's discuss.
Join us on The Agenda, showing only on Love Plus.
Fiscal federalism is the pattern of spending, taxing, and providing grants in the federal system in order to influence the state government. And these are done through grants and aid or funds appropriated by Congress for distribution to state and local governments. There are three types of grants that the federal government provides. The first one is a categorical grant. Out of a list of topics or a list of areas that the federal government can provide grants to, the federal government picks one and then distributes the money to be used in that specific category. One example, there are two types of categorical grants. The first one is the project grant. These grants are the most common categorical grants and are awarded on the basis of competitive applications. One specific example is the NSF. The NSF does projects that create inventions and increase the technology we have and improve on what we have. And the money is awarded to these projects specifically and not to be used elsewhere. The other type of categorical grant is the formula grant. These do not affect who receives the money, but rather how much they receive. And it's based on the population or per capita income or the percentage of rural population or other categories that determine how much is received. Another type of way that the federal government influences the state government is through block grants. Block grants are given over a broad area of categories to support and can be used in any one of these categories. Examples are community development or social security services. The third type of way that the federal government influences the state government under fiscal federalism is through mandates. This is saying that the state government must implement these policies, else they don't receive the money. Now, this is the most disliked out of all three ways of funding because usually the federal government does not provide enough money for the state government to implement the policies and causes more burdens than the benefits that are received. Examples of this are the American with Disabilities Act, in which universities were required to implement or make universities more accessible to the disabled, but they weren't really given much money or given any money to implement these policies.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is still You.Gov, all about you and the government. Last week, we talked about federalism. This week, we are moving a bit further. We're looking at fiscal federalism. And fiscal federalism basically refers to how revenues are shared between the central government or the government at the center or the federal government and the federating units or the states, for instance, in Nigeria. And last week we had Barrister Chris Akiri telling us about federalism. This week we are going to continue with Barrister Chris Akiri on fiscal federalism. Stay tuned.
Fiscal federalism derives from true federalism. Okay. In other words, I did say last time that all the federating units called components or regions or states or cantons must be equal and they must have coordinate powers with the central government or the central or federal government. Now, fiscal federalism means that each of these coordinating units must have their own finances, sources of income. For them, they must generate enough income to be able to run the state and not to depend on another state, or worse, depend on the federal government for any financial assistance. Each one of them must be financially buoyant enough to run its own state. Like in Nigeria, for example, Lagos State, Ogun State, Delta State must not go cap in hand to the central government or to any other state, because all of them must have coordinate financial powers to be able to run themselves. And when we talk of fiscal federalism in Nigeria, we are saying that each of the states in Nigeria has resources. You see, because when we talk of mineral resources, everybody will immediately think of the Niger Delta. No, it's not so. Every state in this country, I can tell you, has at least 3 or 4 or 5 mineral resources. Each of the states in this country. Name the state, and it has mineral resources. I used to have the list of all the mineral resources of the states in my chambers. Now they should exploit those mineral resources for themselves, just like the Niger Delta should be allowed to exploit its petroleum resources for themselves, provided they will pay a royalty or some tax to the federal government. Usually in most places it is 20%, 30% in some cases. They pay a tax or royalty on the mineral resources they have to the center, for the center to be able to run itself correctly on behalf of the federative units. So that's what we call fiscal federalism. A situation in which, like the Petroleum Act 1969, for example, which gives everything mineral resources to the center. It shouldn't be. That's not federation. So we want each of the states to have enough financial resources by itself, never going cap in hand to anybody. That's what we call fiscal federalism. In the 1960 Section 40 of the 1960 Constitution and Section 34 of the Republican Constitution, 1960 and 63 respectively, provided that 50% of any revenue accruing from any mineral, including petroleum, I'm quoting the Constitution, I'm not, including petroleum, must go to the region of origin or region where
they were derived from,
or petroleum was found.
Okay.
Now, then the remaining 50% will be shared by the many regions of the federation.
Okay.
Until the outbreak of the Civil War. When the Civil War broke out, this revenue allocation thing, I mean, you take of derivation, right?
Yeah.
The revenue allocation thing changed from 50-50. 50 going to the region where it was found, and 50 going to the rest of the federation. Change from that one to 0%. You see, 0% must go to the region where it was found. Until the first civilian government came, Shehu Shagari, when he came in 1979, they said, I mean, this is bad. But all politicians agree that this is bad. From 50 to 0%. Well, I mean, when you were sharing money, granite pyramids, and it was 50-50, then you had cocoa, and it was 50-50, you had palm oil from the east, and it was 50-50. Now you suddenly reduce it to 0% when the minority states now have oil. Now you reduce it to 0%. So they argued, and it was increased to 1%. 1% during the time of Shehu Shagari. Then Babangida came. When Babangida came, they added 0.5% to it. It became 1.5%. Until Abacha came. when Abacha said, no, this is bad. You see, Abacha was a despicable despot. You know, he was a despicable dictator. We know. But there was something good about him. It was thanks to this man that this revenue allocation thing, what you call derivation,
yes,
was increased from 1.5% to 13%,
13%.
which is under Section 162 of the Constitution today. But then Section 313 of the Constitution says, look, we put this revenue derivation formula in place for now until the National Assembly can sit properly and they can find their way and then decide on a new revenue allocation to increase this at 8%. They've never increased this in 1999.
Wow.
You understand? So that is, I'm telling the whole country so that they can know that 13%, Abacha put it there, and he said in Section 313 that if the National Assembly settle down, they can bring out an act, another law, to raise this revenue allocation from 30% to anything they liked.
Okay.
They've since not raised it. If anything, I hear that some people are campaigning that 13% is too much. Leave our own mineral for us. For example, in the olden days, when cocoa, groundnut pyramids, hides and skin, tin and columbite, oil or coal from Enugu, you know, tin and columbite from the plateau, you know, groundnut pyramids in Kano, Kaduna, and so on and so forth. Then cocoa in the southwest were the earners of our revenue. You know, who were the people farming cocoa? Were they Igbos? Were they Hausa Fulani? They were Yorubas. Farming, was it the federal government farming cocoa? No. Cocoa was farmed by Yoruba people, owning their land. And in law, both those things on your land and those things under your land are your own. You understand? That we call quid plantator, solo cedit. Quid plantator, solo cedit. Or if you are the owner of one parcel of land, both those things on top of your land, like this building now, for example, and anything below it, any land below is my own. But the federal government, with the Petroleum Act of 1969, said only the thing on top of the land is your own. No. Everything under the land is our own. It's never so. And it was not so during the First Republic. Cocoa was farmed by Yoruba people, not by and sold to the marketing boards. After whatever accrued from the sale, 50% of it will reside in the state of origin, and 50% will go to the rest of the federation for share. Same thing, groundnut pyramid, hides and skins. Same thing with coal. Same with the tin and columbite. Groundnut was not farmed by the federal government or by Yoruba people or Igbo people, farmed by Hausa Fulani people, and they sold the proceeds to their marketing boards, and then whenever they had the revenue deriving from this, they would then share the thing 50-50. That was what happened. But today, Niger Deltans are told, no. It is only the thing you have on top of the land that is yours. Everything under the land is for the federal government. And they take so much money away from that place to be shared, you know, throughout the federation. And that place there is ecological degradation. You only need to go to that place, because when I say ecological degradation, you will know the extent to which the land in that place is degraded. The water they drink is the same water they defecate on, is the same water they use to have their bath. Everything. No wells, no boreholes, nothing. And poverty is writ large on the foreheads of everybody in the Niger Delta. And so the people are saying, give us a good share of something that comes from our land. We own the land is our own. You can't get money from the land from this land and spend 80-something% of it or whatever in other parts of this country when we are suffering. So my own all along, I've written a book on it. I've said, let there be affirmative action. Don't depend on this 13% that you pay to the governors. It's nothing. Before you can build a 1 kilometer stretch of road in the Niger Delta, I mean, if it would take you some 1 billion naira to build a 1 kilometer stretch of road in, say, your state, for example, it will take you 50 billion naira. From 1 billion naira to 50 billion to build a 1 kilometer stretch of road, any part of the Niger Delta, and you say 13%, away from 50%. So that's what these boys are fighting. They're fighting for.
Okay.
So that give us a fair share of what we have. Now the oil blocks we have 80% of them. 80% of the oil blocks are allocated to people outside that region. Well, what is this? And that's what the boys are fighting for. Let every state run itself and get whatever it has in terms of mineral resources, whether petroleum or tin and columbite or gold. You know, you have gold in Sokoto, you have in Ilesha. You have tin and columbite in the plateau. You have coal in Enugu. You have iron. You have iron in Osogbo. Everywhere. Let every state control its resources, subject to the condition that a percentage thereof or royalty thereof is paid to this federal government.
Wow, interesting. Federalism, fiscal federalism, all you need to know about revenue allocation between states and the federal government. And really, as Barrister Chris Akiri said, the states are not supposed to be coming out with cap in hand, going to the center all the time for revenue. They should be able to generate their revenue as well. We have another respondent, Barrister Prince Uzeme, who is going to be telling us more about fiscal federalism.
Fiscal federalism is a concept that refers to the division of governmental functions and the financial relationship between different levels of government. Governmental functions, financial relationships. Well, here in fiscal federalism, we talk about expenditure versus revenue. Who makes what? Who spends what? In Nigeria, we have 3 levels of government: the federal government, the state government, and the local governments. Fiscal federalism in the Nigerian context refers to the division of powers between the 3 levels of government, how they make money, who makes this money, who brings it in, how this money is shared, and who spends what portion of this money. That's the basic concept of fiscal federalism. Fiscal federalism is a concept that has been on since around 1951 in United Kingdom, when the people started raising questions about the funding of the next level of government, which was the regional municipal levels of government. In the United States too, it had been an issue. In their constitution back then, they had what they call the 10th Amendment, which prohibits a United States president from interfering in any way in affairs of the states. And before that portion of their constitution was amended, what they had was that when the states are broke, when there is no money for them to run their affairs, they make an application to the president to say, Mr. President, help us out. But if Mr. President says, I am precluded from helping you out by the provisions of the 10th Amendment of our Constitution, that it will be illegal for me to give you any money at all. So based on these problems and the synergies, the relationships and the frictions between different levels of government, the concept of fiscal federalism came up to lay out guidelines, modalities for one, the different powers between the different levels of government, how government revenue is made, how this revenue is shared, and who spends what. So in totality, in general, the concept of fiscal federalism has come to put to rest the problem that existed when only the federal government would be the rich level of government and the other levels were in perpetual penury. But with fiscal federalism, we could say, for example, in Nigeria, we have excess crude funds. Where is the formula to share this money? Where did it come from? Where is this money supposed to come from? We have taxes. Taxes and taxing powers is another aspect of fiscal federalism. What level of government administers what tax? What does the next level administer? What does the last level, that's the local government, what do they administer? When these monies come in to the federation account, what formula would be used for sharing this money? How is this money spent? When the money has been shared, how will this money be spent? What are you supposed to spend on? What are you not supposed to spend on? And all those issues are issues that deal with fiscal federalism. In a government, in a country, it is necessary and expedient that their fiscal federalism is well thought out and properly explained. Because it is only when this happens that, one, you would have different levels of government that are doing well enough to cater for themselves. It is only when that happens that you would have a level of government not being able to oppress or to take from what is not is due or what is due to another level of government. And it is only when this happens that we would be able to see with clarity that this arm of government is supposed to get its revenue from this source, and the other arm is supposed to get its own revenue from this source. Now, in Nigeria, the issues of fiscal federalism, they devolve from Section 2, Subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which clearly states that the powers will be shared between the federal government and the states and onto the local governments. Now, if you read the schedule to the Constitution, which talks about functions and who does what, I'm talking about the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and what we refer to as the residual list. The residual list is not actually there, but the Constitution says that whatever is not catered for by the exclusive and the concurrent list automatically is residual. It is fiscal federalism that lets us know who does what, who gets what money for what, who spends what, and how do they account for these monies that have been spent. So that's a summary of fiscal federalism as a concept in government.
Wow, that's amazing. Even the Constitution provides for fiscal federalism and how revenue should be distributed. There's an aspect that I would also like you to see, and that is our street teacher who went to the street to get responses from Nigerians. Stay tuned.
Federalism, the man that propounded the doctrine is a philosopher, F.W. Dicey. Then what he's saying is that in a system, there has to be different units. They have the higher units, you have the intermediate units, and you have the lower units. And then the same way, the powers that are shared are separated. You have powers for the highest level, you have power for the medium level, and you have power for the lowest level. You understand? So at any given time, the different arms and let's say different units are not engaged in doing the same thing at the same time. But in Nigeria now we have a federal constitution, and the federal constitution we have what we call the residual list, we have the exclusive list, and we have the list that which anybody can operate. Then that exclusive list belongs to the federal government. Why the residual list, anybody can go and do whatever that is there. You understand? Like education is in the residual list. That's why federal government is involved in education. The state governments are involved in education. And to some extent, local governments are also involved in education. You understand? But when you talk of the security, or talk of something like that has to do with aviation, it's exclusive. It belongs to the federal government. The state governments are not involved at all.
What federalism simply means is that each arm of government is independent from the other, and that there are checks and balances. For example, the various states are independent from, to a certain extent, they are independent from the federal government. They control a lot of their resources and should be able to determine what they do with these resources. So that's what federalism is really all about. Unfortunately, with Nigeria, we've not really had a federal system, so to speak. And that's why people keep talking about us going back to what they describe as true federalism. I doubt if there is any phrase called true federalism, but I do understand what they mean. That we must practice federalism, the federal system, the way it should be practiced, so that states have control of their resources, and then they contribute whatever they have to the federal government. When you talk about marginalization and federal character, the truth of the matter is this: I don't believe in those twin concepts. I don't believe that anybody is being marginalized. I think that is part of the problem of our country, why we are where we are, where we have refused to develop and move forward. We should practice a system of meritocracy, if permit me to use that word, a system that is based on merit, where people are encouraged and rewarded on the basis of their ability, not because they are from certain parts of the country. If you are from a certain part of the country and for one reason or the other, you are not able to, maybe because of your historical background, you are not able to catch up and compete, then that should be a challenge to you to buckle up. Unfortunately for us as a nation, we have embedded in our constitution some of these terms, federal character, that whatever we do should reflect federal character, which means that we should have an even spread from the all part of Nigeria. That is really a problem, because it does not speak well of us. It simply means that where you have somebody who is qualified for a particular post, he may not get it simply because we need to balance it out by giving somebody else from another part of the country. So I think that does not go well for our nation. And that is why, for instance, if you look at admissions into universities, some states, I hear that these days, JAM results, they are getting less than 100 and they are being admitted, while some other people have 250, they are not being admitted over 400, and you talk about federal character, you understand? So those are part of the challenges we face as a nation. We have to move away from all of these concepts and enthrone merit as a basis of our nation moving forward.
Amazing. Quite interesting responses we got out there. We have some tidbits that I would like you to see. This is still You.Gov, and before we go, we always like to hear from you. Last week we sent a question out to our King's Chat page and we asked, how many countries make up Nigeria as a federal state? And we got some responses. Thank you so much for responding. This week our question is, who is in charge of Nigerians' financial affairs? That is, who is the Minister of Finance for Nigeria? Send your questions to hashtag You.Gov on King's Chat on our super user page, and we'll get your responses. I remain yours sincerely, Itohan Olomu-Agbodo, and I'm saying bye for now.